In this lesson, we're going to talk about how will you manage shipping. We're going to talk about choosing a freight forwarder in Vietnam versus your country. We're going to talk about registering yourself as an importer of record. We're going to talk about air versus sea and full container load versus less than container load. Will you choose a freight forwarder in your country or in Vietnam? That's a good question. And I recommend that you hire a freight forwarder company in Vietnam. And one of the main reasons is that the operating costs of a company in Vietnam, especially in terms of human resources, is a lot lower than in other countries. So there's a little bit of cost savings there. And also, getting the goods out of Vietnam requires good relationships with the local authorities, the customs offices, and the port authorities. And the Vietnamese freight forwarding companies have those relationships. Another one is having a relationship with an organization called VCCI, which is a government institution that issues the certificate of origin forms that allows you to qualify for tariff reductions thanks to free trade agreements. And the Vietnamese freight forwarding companies have very good relationships with people working in VCCI. But that being said, the truth is you can hire a freight forwarding company anywhere in the world because there are alliances of freight forwarders. And the way it works is like a freight forwarder in Vietnam, they have staff here in Vietnam, they have offices here in Vietnam, but they do not have staff or offices in all the countries around the world where they could potentially ship to for their clients. So what they do is they join alliances. Every major port around the world has representation for every alliance. So a freight forwarding company in Vietnam will join an alliance, and if they all of a sudden have to ship something to, say, Dubai, and they've never shipped anything there before, they'll just go to their alliance, find a freight forwarder company that's in that alliance in Dubai, and then cooperate and partner. So that because they basically need a partner on the ground in Dubai in order to efficiently clear customs in Dubai and do the last mile shipment in Dubai. So that's how it works. Is like, for example, you can, if let's say you're based in Los Angeles, you can hire a freight forwarding company in LA, and that freight forwarding company in LA has a partner somewhere here in Vietnam, and the two cooperate. To It's all about getting the goods out of Vietnam through the customs here in Vietnam, and then getting the goods through the customs in the country where you're shipping to. And every country is different. Once you choose a freight forwarder and ask them for a quote, they're going to ask you questions. They're going to ask you for the port of origin. They're going to ask you for your shipping mode, whether it's air or sea freight. They're going to ask you for the shipping terms, which is the Incoterms we just got through talking about. And they're going to ask you for information about the boxes, which you would get from the packing list, which is the number of boxes, the gross weight of all the boxes, and the dimensions of each box. And they'll also ask you for the pickup and delivery date. The hardest question out of all these questions to answer is the number of boxes, the gross weight, and the dimensions of each box, because you really don't know that information until the factory has already produced all the goods and they're starting to pack them. Now, can you work with the factory to get that information early on, even before you place a deposit, so that you can calculate your shipping cost? The answer is yes. You have to push a little bit and you have to make some assumptions, but all of it is simple math, and the factories, they know based on past experience what is a typical shipping box, how many t-shirts can you fit into a shipping box, and what is the average weight of a garment. So you might have to make some assumptions, and it won't be exactly the same as when everything's said and done and you do the final packing list, but it'll be the assumptions will be enough to answer the questions for the freight forwarder so that they can give you a price quote. If you're not in touch with the factory, then just guess. Just use logic, ask artificial intelligence, and just get some approximations. Nowadays, there are websites out there that are associated with, like, Amazon selling and shipping into the Amazon warehouses, where you just pay a small fee and they ask you questions, and you just plug in all the information and they'll answer all these questions for you, very detailed. So once you've chosen your freight forwarder and you've answered all their questions and they've given you a price quote on shipping, the next thing you have to do when managing your shipping is you register yourself in the country where you're going to be receiving the goods. So you have to become what is called an importer of record. And basically, by becoming the importer of record, you are legally responsible for the goods that you're importing into your country. And you can be the importer of record yourself, or you can hire a customs broker to be your importer of record, or the freight forwarding company will be your importer of record. And the reason I say that is that every freight forwarding company has a customs broker on staff. And the customs brokers, they have customs brokers licenses, and those licenses allow them to be importer of record. Basically, they have a power of attorney to take responsibility for the goods on your behalf. And in the case of the US, if you want to understand this better, there's a form that's put out by the Customs Border and Protection Agency called Form 5106. If you look it up on the internet, you'll see all the questions that they ask, and you can read more about, what exactly does it mean to become an importer of record. But it's something you have to do. So the other thing that you have to do is you have to get bonded, and basically you have to pay money to the government, which is like insurance for the government in case you either don't pay the import duty or there's some kind of problem at the port, and the government has to compensate your goods and then dispose of it. So talk to a customs broker or a freight forwarding company, and they will help you become an importer of record and get bonded. As part of managing the shipping process, you have to fill out a lot of documents. There's the commercial invoice, the packing list, the bill of lading, import license, which is sometimes required, the certificate of origins if you need to qualify for free trade agreements, and the customs declaration form. You yourself won't fill these out. That's what you pay the freight forwarding company for, but they'll be asking you for a lot of information that they need in order to fill these forms out. So it's good to learn about them in advance and just be prepared to work with a shipping company to fill them all out. So when you're managing your shipping, you have two options. You can ship by air or ship by sea. Air takes 3 to 5 days, and you can use any of the international carriers like UPS, DHL, FedEx. I do not recommend using the government post offices. Like, don't use the U.S. Postal Service in America. Don't use the Postal Service in the United Kingdom, because they basically use the Vietnamese government postal system, which compared to the international couriers takes a lot longer, and the clearing customs process is much more complicated. So if you ship by DHL, almost guaranteed it'll get here 3 to 5 days. If you ship through the U.S. Postal Service, it could take 3 months. So the other option is shipping by sea. And if you're going to ship by sea, it can take up to 40 days, for example, 40 days for around the world. And you have to use a freight forwarding company. Cost-wise, if you ship by air, it's going to cost you approximately $1 like per t-shirt. And if you ship by sea, it will only cost you like 30 cents. So there's significant cost savings. It just takes a lot longer, a lot more paperwork to ship by sea versus shipping by air. The other option that you have when shipping is to ship what we call FCL, which is full container load, or ship by less than container load. Two basic sizes of containers. There's 20-foot containers, which can fit around 15,000 t-shirts, or a 40-foot container, which can fit around 30,000 t-shirts. But there's also HC, which stands for high cubed. So you'll sometimes see like 20-foot high C, high cubed container, which is just a little bit bigger than a normal 20-foot container. So just be aware of that. That's all full container load. So you do like a full 20-foot container, or you take a full 40-foot container load. But what happens when your total cubic meterage for your order is less than a 20-foot container? So like, let's say you're doing 4 cubic meters, which is, I'm not exactly sure, but it's less than half of a 20-foot container. So what it means is that you could just put your 4 cubic meters in a 20-foot container, in which case you'd just be shipping a lot of air. But at least everything in that container is sealed, and nobody comes in and out of it, and it's only your goods. And that container goes straight from the factory all the way to your warehouse. It never gets opened. But if you're going to do what's called less than container load, which is cheaper, the downside to doing less than container load is that you have to share the container with other shipments. What happens is that, like, the 20-foot container might have 3 different customers in it, 3 different separate shipments going to different parts of the world with different packaging sizes and shapes. So usually the shipping vessels or that container will somehow end up either in Singapore or in Hong Kong, and it will be opened up, and then your shipment will be diverted to another container which is going to your final destination, and the other 2 will be diverted to a different location. So there's usually a stopping point, and the container has to be opened, and your goods are taken out and then put in another container, and that just causes time delays and increases the chances of items being stolen or broken or lost. And even at the port of entry, so like if you're shipping into the US, your shipment might get put into a 40-foot container with 5 other people's shipment, and then when it gets to Los Angeles, let's say that it has to be put on a train. Well, somebody in Los Angeles has to open up the container, take out your specific shipment, then put it in another container that's going to, say, Las Vegas, with some other people that came in shipment, some other person's shipment that came in from another country that's also going to Las Vegas, and it will be packed again, and then it'll be put on a train, and then it will go to Las Vegas, to your warehouse. The shipping company will manage all that. You just pay one price, but it's just doing LCL is a lot more complicated. And while it should be cheaper, sometimes LCL is more expensive than full container load, even if you don't fill the full container to 100%. And that's where the freight forwarding agents companies come into play. They do this day in and day out. They know all the different routes. They know all the tricks of the trade, and they will come up with options for you and try to find the quickest and the cheapest way, whether it's by air or by sea, full container load, less than container load, truck, train, boat. They have got lots of options. So here's a bonus point. If you ship by sea, then the minimum size is 1 cubic meter, and 1 meter cubed can fit 250 t-shirts. So that's kind of like the MOQ for shipping. There are no such things as boxes that are 1 cubic meter. It actually ends up being like 3 or 4 boxes that in total equal 1 cubic meter. Let's say you only have 2 boxes and they're only half a cubic meter. Honestly, I'm not even sure if the shipping companies would ship them by sea, but you certainly would have to pay for 1 cubic meter if they did agree to ship less than 1. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they'd fill empty boxes or something. But there is an MOQ for shipping by sea, which is another problem when doing small quantity. So in summary, you have choices. You can choose a freight forwarding company in Vietnam, or you can choose a freight forwarding company nearest to where you live. You have to register yourself as an importer record and get bonded. And you have the option of either air or sea, and full container load or less than container load. And if you're doing less than 1 cubic meter, if the volume of your shipment is less than 1 cubic meter, that's problematic, and there's a very high chance that your only option is to ship by air. In the next lesson, we're going to be talking about how to calculate your import duties. See you there.